Well, I thought I heard something in this.
I'm raring to go.
I'm raring to go.
All right, we're on.
Is that northern Utah expression?
That's it.
Going?
Yep,
Okay.
going.
Welcome to the Senate Legislative Update. Today we had Senator Orrin Hatch come and visit us and answer some questions. Give us a little bit of an update on what's happening on the federal level in Washington, D.C. We also, it's a sad day for Utah and in the loss of Sergeant Corey Ride, and we took some time to remember him today, and our hearts go out to their family as well as the Sherwood family, as Deputy Sherwood is in serious condition with having also been shot, and so we just want to remember them and wish the best for Deputy Sherwood's recovery. Any other things that on the floor? That's pretty much it for the day. So we'd be happy to go into questions.
Let me answer one. The last time I was asked about what recommended changes and what committee changes were being made to the base budget, and I gave you some generalization. We hope we will hear that Monday night. So when we do executive appropriations, you'll get a sheet that'll show you exactly what changes they have recommended, and so you'll be able to see that. And I think what most of the committees have done, although they've found places where money can be reallocated, they have not actually reallocated it yet. So they'll be doing that in the following appropriation committees meetings they have to do that.
But just for, I guess, a procedural question then, are those reallocations going to be reflected in the base budgets that are adopted by executive?
Not the reallocations, just only the monies they have found that are not going to be put back where they were.
They'll take it'll reflect that they've been taken out, but
Right.
not where they're going to be put back in.
Right.
And you're not planning on taking money from Committee X and putting it in Committee Y at that meeting necessarily?
No. When we finally get down to figure out exactly putting the budget, there may be some of that if the compelling need in one committee is so much greater than where it is there. But I think it'll show more how we allocate the new money.
Did any of you have any personal acquaintance or connection with either of these Utah County, the deputy or the sergeant?
I wish Senator Valentine was here, and maybe if you want to hold that question off, he'll be here in just a moment after he's done with Rules Committee.
We talked to him earlier. I was just going to check
Okay.
and see if any of you did.
You're familiar with the Speaker's Public Education Modernization Plan, right? I mean, we've talked about it a little bit with her.
Nothing in detail. I was briefed on it a few days ago, and the one-to-one, but there's a lot of detail in that I'm not familiar with. Anybody else familiar with the detail on that bill?
No.
Okay.
Is there a Senate sponsor for that bill yet?
Not that I know of.
Maybe, I know it's kind of, you say it's
Senator Howard Stevenson is actually recognized nationally for his knowledge on digital learning. And so I requested that the House meet with him to talk with him about the details, and they were gracious enough to have a meeting with him on Wednesday. And so they're going to, we have a Senate representative who's one of the leaders in our country on that issue. We're going to work with the House on hopefully coming up with a bill that we can all address.
It looks like the price tag could be pretty high. You contemplated how.
Yeah, I mean, there's some huge questions about that, right? Because we have how much revenue ongoing? 157.
Yeah.
That is a price tag of $200 or $300 million. I'm reading about that. I haven't seen any fiscal analyst information, and so we would obviously have questions about: are we going to use up all that money on this initiative? And what about growth? And what about WPU? So those are questions that will need to be asked as we move along the process.
mentioned things like state prisons and transportation.
Medicaid.
Where do things stand on, well, or where do you all stand on Senator Urquhart's non-discrimination bill? Is that going to come up, or is that going to be part of a moratorium, those issues?
I think as we've said a number of times, our real emphasis is on defending Amendment 3. And until we get a decision from the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals and possibly even the Supreme Court on that issue, we feel like other discussions are only going to detract from that which is our focus. We want to stay focused on that effort to defend our citizens' amendment, which passed by a large majority. And so we have kind of taken the stance that we probably won't take a look at some of the religious freedom type bills or the anti-discrimination bill, because a lot of the rhetoric and the discussion that would go along with those bills could have an effect on the court case. And so it's been our position that we're going to stay focused on that court case and our defense of it.
If I were playing devil's advocate and seems like legislation is supposed to be pretty messy, and issues come up that people push issues that aren't necessarily you don't necessarily want to come up. So how do you defend a court case being a reason to not bring bills up on when other people would say that's fantastic if that issue came up?
Well,
Let me answer that for you.
Go ahead.
One of the famous quotes of legislature involves a case involving having a moment of silence. I think Louisiana was the state, went to the Supreme Court. And one of the bases the Supreme Court made its decision to strike it down is that a legislator on the floor of the legislature said, well, we really know this is for prayer. And that comment alone was enough for the Supreme Court to strike the moment of silence, which was argued could be for any minute to anything, just to calm you down. Said, no, this is clearly for church. So you never know what happens in a floor context, either good or bad. It may help the case, it may hurt the case. But I think I'm really, as a lawyer, of opinion, it's better not to tread on that ground until you know what the Supreme Court says your parameters are.
Senator Davis?
I think the anti-discrimination should go forward, really. I don't think it's related to the lawsuit or the challenge to the Shelby decision. I think they're totally separate. However, looking at the other bills that are out there on the marriage issue, and those issues, I think probably cooler heads need to prevail. I think we need to take a look and be cautious that we don't prejudice our case before the district court or the appeals court. But I really believe that the anti-discrimination is something that is not related to marriage, and I support it.
You support it and you think it should go forward?
I would like to see it go forward, but I understand there's a competing piece on it that probably would be more damaging if that were to pass than where we lose the status quo as it is today.
So, I'm sorry if I'm confused by the answer, so are you comfortable with the moratorium that encompasses the religious freedom bills and the anti-discrimination bills, or do you think that the anti-discrimination bill should be considered separately from those religious freedom bills?
I think they should be supported independently, but I know that they're also been united. And so we need to make sure that cooler heads prevail, and we have a circumstance to be able to argue that issue of opportunity equally, non-discrimination wise, should be argued in a less hostile environment.
Senator.
Any other questions?
Senator Hatch brought up Medicaid and giving that direction to the state. How do you weigh in on that? Could the state do a better job of running the program than the federal government's trying?
I was the co-chair of this Health Systems Reform Task Force. And if the state had some flexibility, we could do some great things here. In fact, I think we could take the current revenue stream from Washington and come close, if not cover all the expansion population, if we just had a little flexibility with how to administer the program. And I know we've asked for waivers for over the years and have been granted very few of those waivers. But I still maintain that Utah, grant us the same amount of money you're sending us today and give us a chance to expand the population with that current revenue stream, but give us some flexibility on how the program works.
You guys discussed this a little bit yesterday in the caucus, I guess, and I think Lieutenant Governor Bell, former Lieutenant Governor Bell was there, and you had Representative Dunnigan in. The speaker said that she doesn't want to take basically a nickel of federal money. If we need to find a way to cover the $60,000, we need to do it in existing revenues. Is that where the Senate is at this point? Or are you not at a point yet?
We've had some discussions in caucus, and maybe you could characterize those.
Yeah, we briefly got into it yesterday. We spent a lot of time on other issues, and so we had a kind of an introduction of ideas out there. We haven't even explored all of the options in any detail yet, and so we're in kind of the beginning analysis of that in our caucus. We haven't taken any positions. I suspect, I know we're going to have to continue our discussion from the other day because we only had about 15 or 20 minutes to get into it. I think that over the next couple of weeks, our caucus will continue to look at that. At this point, I believe all of the options are still out there on the table for our caucus. We're still willing to look at everything, and I suspect that our caucus members, you would find that we have got a lot of different opinions on where we should go at this point, whether we look at one of the options or full expansion or where we might go with that.
Is there a time frame when you guys start putting together budget proposals? So I'm sure social services is going to have to lay that in, so you probably have to have some direction and policy before you start getting to that point.
We'll be done on March 7th. I hope. It takes all weekend to print the budget for the next Monday.
All right. Can I ask, backing up on marriage, the House met yesterday with the Attorney General and the council, the new council. I take it the Senate didn't or hasn't yet had that sort of meeting with the Attorney General? And do you plan to?
We did meet with the
Oh.
attorney, same
Yesterday?
folks. No, it's been prior to the session.
Oh.
Yeah, sorry, all-day caucus.
Oh, okay.
And we have not invited the Attorney General to our caucus at this point. Not that we won't.
Bob, let me just share something. I was kind of about March the 7th. Normally, as you know, we get our new revenue figures in the middle of February. I was talking to Jonathan Ball yesterday, and he said we need every minute we can get. That the things they normally look at to predict the economy are bouncing all over, or so unstable. And so I told, he wanted the 6th. That's why I said, no, we got to have it before the 6th because we got to do the budget. So I don't think you'll see the revenue figures released in the middle of February. It's probably going to be the end of February, maybe the 1st of March, to give them as much time as they can, because I've not sensed this concern as much before about trying to project what the revenues are going to be.
And I think that it's well to highlight that Utah has always been conservative in their revenue forecasts. It's easy for us to, if we want to spend more money, to increase that revenue forecast and then budget to that. But it's been the practice to get the three bodies together, the governor, the legislature and the tax commission and come up with a consensus number, and that's treated us well over the years. And only in times of extreme economic change has those predictions been off in any degree. So our process has been very good.
What sorts of factors are bouncing around? I mean, I know the stock market's going through.
I did not ask him. He did, that was just a comment he made to me that, and I know, so you understand the process. Our staff hires independent experts. The governor staff hires other independent experts. And they sit down together and they come to an agreement of what factors are we going to look at and try to come to a consensus of that. And then they leave. Then they come up with the revenue projections and they come back again, I think within a day or so. And now they negotiate what they think the revenue figures are going to be and come up with a consensus figure. And so I don't know. I didn't ask exactly what ones they were, and I don't know whether the governor's staff feels the same as our staff or not. But I want to give them as much time as they have because it really is an important decision we make.
Just a general question. Do you see any big firearms legislation coming out of this session?
I haven't seen anything yet.
I haven't heard of any. The final budget, that'll be the big fire.
A small fire.
I'm sure there'll be some other fire
Cockfighting.
through the session.
So we got no marriage or same-sex unions legislation, no liquor legislation, no firearms legislation. What are we going to do the next 4 years?
Senator Davis will find one saying, cockfighting or something? What is that?
Senator Niederhauser, do you
What's
want
exciting for us is the budget.
Yeah.
That's the reason why we're here, right?
That is.
Yes.
Do you want to respond to or explain your comments about the former Attorney General in that email that you made public?
It was on the public website.
He was a good friend, and that you
Yeah,
probably would have taken
yeah,
a different
I'd love to
approach
make a
than
comment
that.
on that. I made a response to a constituent in December on an email regarding the Swallow case, and I just want to emphasize that John Swallow remains a good friend, but I also see the value and support the House investigation. I think the outcomes there have been profound. I voted for the investigation in July and have supported the funding of that. And so, yeah, that's my comment.
Was that the type of statement, though, that you were encouraging other senators not to make at that point in time?
The Attorney General had resigned at that time.
You're right, yeah.
And so it's been a real interesting time for the Senate during that, because we were trying to keep personal feelings aside, and because we may be in an impeachment process, and so anyway. Any other questions?
Is that, so when the governor was making his State of the State address, he said he was proud of how the state had reacted, noted the House investigation and looking into, and then the Lieutenant Governor looking into John Swallow. Do you feel that way? Was that a proud thing and the right thing to do? To investigate. The governor in his State of the State said that he was proud of how that situation was handled.
Yes, and the Senate supported that. We voted for it in July, and I think that the Senate had thought that we might have a different process. The consensus at that time, 2020, if there's hindsight, it's 2020. But we had felt that maybe instead of an investigative process, they should have gone right into an impeachment process, and discovered that in an impeachment process, and we wouldn't have had to change the law in July for that. And the outcomes, I think, would have been the same. So we weren't there wasn't complete alignment how there needed to be a legislative investigative process.
Is that what you meant when you said you think the Senate would have gone about it differently?
You know, I don't know what I meant in that, because that was done at midnight on December 15th. So and I answer hundreds of email personally all the time, and so I couldn't comment because I don't remember what the intent was.
And as a friend, since you still consider him a friend, and I think we all hope we stand by friends even if they mess up. I mean, have you talked to him, and how do you address that?
I talked with him after he resigned, and haven't talked with him since. But after he resigned, we talked on the telephone, and because I hadn't talked to him for 9 months, because of the position that I needed to take with regards to being in the Senate and the Senate President. And so I had avoided any conversation with John Swallow over that time, and that's kind of difficult because, you know, we've known each other many years.
Did it change the way you think about any of the issues that came up? Ethics, legislation, money in politics?
Yeah, the results of the investigation, I think, are profound, and once those come out here in the next couple of weeks in written form, I think will be a basis to have some deliberative, not reactionary, discussions on how to deal with probably one of the biggest issues coming out of that investigation is dark money. How do we deal with dark money? It's, you know, and sometimes when we try to suppress transparent money, we incentivize dark money, and so we've got to be very careful on how do we address these campaign finances. But for sure, that's some of the biggest problems that we face today is when we don't know where the money came from.
I think the biggest question of the week, Seahawks, Broncos?
Seahawks.
Seahawks.
Green Bay. I'm a Packer fan.
Denver by 10.
So
that sounds interesting. Is that, you guys have a...
I became a Seahawk because of Bobby Wagner and Robert Turbin, but Wagner especially.
Thank you very much. All right.
Thanks.
Big one.